So again, some of those components, we talked a little about service requests. When you go to create one of these, you just pick what you want. Whitelist. So this is more along the lines of what we would do with the IoT, where we would whitelist a device ID, so we're not allowing data from just anything. We're controlling the data that we're getting. But I picked this screen because it gives kind of a look at the interface on what we can do in this interface with a little search filter to search for what's in that little grid list at the left. We can filter on those and find what we're looking for. There's delete buttons if we're just doing our own piece or if it's not associated with another orchestration. There's an about, which is pretty neat. I'll show you that. So if we have a component we're looking for where is it used, that about button shows us where it's used. So you always wonder that. Well, I see this. Where did I use it? Oh, yes. And then obviously the close button and a restore button, which will just refresh your screen if you haven't saved. So the rules are actually, there's a simplified rule where it's kind of a point and click into an if-then. If this, then do this. Check address book number to make sure it's greater than 0. Check to see if this is a string value. Check to see if it's greater than a tolerance. And that can either be a variable or a literal, which is a static, which means I'm just trying to compare against a known value. And if I can't do that through this GUI interface, then reach out to one of our developers and say, I need an enhanced rule. And they can go ahead and use this Groovy script, and they can do anything that you could probably think of in there, for if, then, else, case, this, that, and do some heavy logic in a rule that says now you can have back the data, or yes, you can proceed. Cross-referencing, always great. When you're interacting with third-party systems, they're going to send you their choice of a purchase order. And JD Edwards is going to create its own purchase order more likely, and you're going to want to cross-reference that those are linked. So we can do that through the cross-referencing mechanism, which has actually been part of JD Edwards for many, many years. They're able to do pretty much all the integrations that you want to do, but they've exposed it as well within Orchestrator and drag and drop GUI inside of the interface. Okay, so a couple other things here. We talked about UDOs. So obviously I have my personal ones. Those are the ones I'm working on, only I can see. I can do that all day long, not affect anybody. Unless maybe I'm transacting data, then I might affect anybody. But I can build these in my own little workspace. And when I'm ready, I can either delete them or use it for myself, or I can go out and say I want to request to publish. So that's within that environment. So if I request to publish and I'm in dev, that's where it's going to be published. It would have to be then, the UDO would have to then be promoted to the other environments once it's tested.
So the only way to make a UDO is with Orchestrator?
You can hand code them and import them if you wanted to, but this is the...
Because UDOs existed before Orchestrator.
Yes. Okay. So the reserve is great. So let's say there's a great one out there that we've been using, and it's time for me to go look at making a change. I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to do a reserve. And now I'm going to get kind of my own personal copy. Not going to mess with what's out there in production that's shared and being used. I can actually do my own little personal one. I could do that in production if I'm just trying to maybe troubleshoot a bug, or I would more likely do it in dev and take one of those and make my changes and then go through that promotion. I can add notes to it to kind of enhance what is going on and a little bit of a, what is this Orchestrator, what does it do? Kind of like almost like a little wiki page.
So can you give an example of why a user would create a UDO? Like name something that you doesn't already do.
So I'm going to do an automation to do something. Let's say we have an auditing event coming up, and they're saying, hey, I need a list of all the clients you have that have credit limits greater than $500,000. Because we want you to go back and now revalidate that those users really should have that credit limit that they haven't, maybe it should be downgraded or upgraded based on, a credit check through an agency. Okay, so that's a multi-level one, but I could do a data query to query all those that are greater than a value. I can iterate through those, call an external credit check, and adjust or make a report that I email to somebody like the credit manager saying, okay, these 5 people need to be downgraded, these need to be upgraded, we can do something like that. So maybe it's working across where we want a segregation of duty, where I might be able to do one thing and you might be able to do another, and then those can be joined together so that the user running this and this, so the process can still happen, but we can do an approval or something in the middle before we do that. We're still segregating, segregation of duties. So all kinds of different, if you just sit and start drawing on a board, we could probably come up with all kinds of different use cases. Schedule, pretty simple scheduler. You can set it up for minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or if you're familiar with a Linux or Unix cron, you can just shove a cron string in there and that works as well too. And then the notifications. So, notifications are pretty neat in that they can run independent of our orchestration. They can run an orchestration, they can send a link, they can do a link to an application, link to a website. So quite a bit you can do there for your notification. And you can schedule those to run every so often and just notify you. And this is kind of one of the big pieces in 9.2.3 something that we came out with. And so every time we sit down with this, we start thinking of other use cases that we can use notifications for as well. And then caps this all off with what we call an orchestration. So an orchestration uses all those other components: a service call with its data or form, a rule, a cross-reference, a message. You all use all those as an orchestration. So you just make a step-by-step process. I'm going to go do A, and I'm going to give it this input, and I'm going to look for these 3 outputs to pass into B, and maybe I want to check to make sure it's not over tolerance or it should go on. So I just start building all those into this step-by-step process, which can do multiple steps, multiple forms, multiple applications. So it can do the same thing a user does, it can just do it a lot faster.